Imagine a day when the sky darkened, the earth shook, and silence fell over Jerusalem. Jesus, the man who healed and spoke of a different kingdom, was dead and buried. It seemed like the end. But what if that silence hid the beginning of the greatest victory of all time? In the ancient belief systems of many cultures, the underworld, known by names like Sheol, Hades, or Gehenna, was the final destination of the dead. According to certain biblical and apocryphal texts, it was a place divided. The righteous awaited redemption in peace, while the wicked were imprisoned in torment. But at the heart of this shadowy realm stood one figure, Lucifer, the adversary, the fallen angel who believed he had finally triumphed. Lucifer's fall from grace had been marked by rebellion. His mission was to oppose the divine will after being cast out of heaven for pride and ambition. For generations, he believed the ultimate victory would be to see the Creator's plan for humanity fail. And now, with the death of the so-called Son of God, Lucifer believed his victory was complete. The underworld echoed with the twisted celebration of fallen angels. The gates of death seemed secure. For 3 days, darkness believed it had won. But deep within the shadows, a light began to stir, a light unlike any that realm had ever seen. The New Testament provides hints of a mysterious journey undertaken by Jesus after his death. 1 Peter 3:18-20 records that Jesus went and proclaimed to the imprisoned spirits. This passage, debated by theologians for centuries, suggests a descent into the underworld, not as a victim, but as a victor. According to ancient Christian tradition, this moment is known as the harrowing of hell, a journey where Jesus descended to the depths to confront the power of death and liberate the righteous who had awaited salvation. This was not a quiet rest in the grave, it was a mission of conquest. Jesus, no longer the suffering servant of the cross, but the King of glory, radiant with power. The one whom death thought it had claimed now stood in the very place designed to keep souls captive. His presence alone shattered the oppressive darkness. In apocryphal texts, such as the Gospel of Nicodemus, this descent is described in vivid detail. Lucifer, realizing what is happening, attempts to bar the gates, but it is too late. The power that defeated death cannot be contained. The confrontation is swift. The gates of hell are torn apart. The chains fall away. The souls of the righteous, prophets, kings, and the faithful rise as they recognize the one they had long awaited. They claim to have lifted Adam, the first man, from his place of waiting. The mistake made in Eden was now being corrected by the second Adam, Jesus Christ. The moment becomes a procession. Jesus does not leave the underworld alone. The gates open not just for him, but for those who had been trapped in death's hold. In Matthew 27:52-53, it is recorded that at the moment of Jesus' resurrection, the tombs broke open and the bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. The journey began on March 29, 33 AD, as Jesus entered Jerusalem during the Passover festival. Crowds cheered, laying palm branches in his path. Yet, beneath this celebration lay tension and fear. The same voices that shouted, "Hosanna," would soon demand his death. Humanity's loyalty is fragile, easily swayed by fear and influence. It was in this atmosphere of uncertainty that the plan of redemption unfolded. On April 2nd, 33 AD, during the Last Supper, Jesus shared bread and wine with his disciples, establishing a new covenant. This moment marked the promise of salvation. His body broken, his blood poured out for humanity, yet betrayal lurked nearby. Judas Iscariot, driven by greed and manipulation, sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. The betrayal by someone so close reveals a chilling truth. The greatest threats often come from within. If Judas could betray the Son of God, what hope is there for the rest? As the night deepened, Jesus went to Gethsemane, a garden shrouded in shadows and sorrow. There, under immense stress, he sweated drops of blood, a rare medical condition known as hematidrosis. Occurring under extreme psychological pressure, his prayer, "Not my will, but yours be done," echoed in the stillness. The fear of imminent death loomed, yet he chose submission over escape. This decision, facing unimaginable pain instead of avoiding it, defined the essence of sacrifice. At dawn on April 3rd, 33 AD, the trial began. It was a farce, false accusations, manipulated witnesses, and a governor, Pontius Pilate, washing his hands in an empty gesture of innocence. The crowd chose Barabbas, a murderer, over Jesus. The choice highlighted humanity's tragic tendency to embrace destruction over salvation, familiarity over truth. Remember to join our community by subscribing to this channel. At 9 a.m., the crucifixion commenced. Roman crucifixion was not just a death sentence, it was a public display of fear and power. The design aimed to gradually break both the spirit and the body. Jesus bore not only physical pain but also the crushing weight of the world's sins. From noon to 3 p.m., an unnatural darkness covered the land, a moment so significant that historians outside the Bible noted it. This darkness was more than a natural event. It symbolized the universe mourning the death of its creator. At 3 p.m., Jesus declared, "It is finished." His final breath did not signify defeat, but completion. The earth shook again, and tombs broke open. The fear trigger here is undeniable. Death itself seemed to tremble. What followed was unprecedented. Reports of saints rising from their graves and walking the city. The boundary between life and death blurred. This moment of redemption and sacrifice is deeply documented, not only in biblical texts, but also in historical accounts and medical studies. The events align with astronomical data, confirming the date of the crucifixion and the Passover timeline. The convergence of physical phenomena, earthquakes, darkness, and torn veils creates a chilling atmosphere. Without this sacrifice, darkness would have reigned unchallenged. The Bible uses powerful language to describe what happened, though it remains focused on spiritual triumph rather than physical conflict. In Colossians 2:15, it states, "And having disarmed the powers and authorities, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross." This verse reveals that Jesus achieved his victory at the cross, not through a dramatic showdown in hell. The phrase "disarmed the powers and authorities" indicates that Jesus stripped spiritual forces of their power. However, this disarming is presented symbolically, showing that sin, death, and all forces aligned with Lucifer were rendered powerless through his sacrificial death. Another key passage is found in Revelation 1:18, where Jesus proclaims, "I am the living one, I was dead, and now I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades." Here, Jesus claims total authority over death and the underworld, Hades. The keys symbolize control and ownership, signifying that no longer does death hold dominion over humanity. Though the Bible does not describe a direct battle with Lucifer, this statement alone indicates that Jesus' resurrection was the definitive moment of Satan's defeat. While Scripture is silent on a physical confrontation, theological interpretations provide deeper insight. Many theologians believe that Jesus' descent into the underworld represented a declaration of victory rather than a battle. His death and resurrection were enough to dismantle the power structures he had tried to establish. The disarming mentioned in Colossians suggests a complete spiritual overthrow. Lucifer, who had relied on death and sin to keep humanity bound, was rendered powerless because Jesus overcame death itself. By rising from the dead, Jesus broke the final weapon Lucifer held against mankind. The term triumph in the passage is significant. In Roman times, a triumphal procession was a public event where a conquering general displayed the spoils of war and paraded defeated enemies through the streets. By using this language, Paul emphasizes that Jesus' victory was total and humiliating for the powers of darkness. The triumph was not about confrontation, but about proclamation, declaring to all creation that the victory had been won. When Jesus claims to hold the keys of death and Hades in Revelation 1:18, it conveys absolute control. In ancient times, keys represented authority. The one who held the key had the power to open or close doors. Jesus' possession of these keys means that death no longer serves as the final word. It implies that Satan no longer holds the power to imprison souls. Though popular culture often imagines dramatic scenes where Jesus storms the gates of hell and confronts Lucifer face to face, biblical evidence and theological consensus suggest otherwise. The victory Jesus achieved was spiritual, legal, and absolute, requiring no further conflict. Jesus' descent into the underworld is viewed by many scholars as a declaration of victory to the spirits in prison. 1 Peter 3:19. In this interpretation, Jesus entered the realm of the dead not to fight, but to announce that sin and death had been defeated. Lucifer's power lay in death's finality. But when Jesus rose, death was no longer final. Lucifer's greatest weapon was neutralized. Today, Satan remains active, sowing deception and fear. He tempts, accuses, and influences, working tirelessly to distance humanity from the divine. Despite his activity, he already faces spiritual defeat. The resurrection of Jesus ensured that Satan's power would never again reign unchallenged. The death and resurrection of Christ broke the chains that held humanity in fear of death, rendering Satan's grip powerless for those who believe. This spiritual defeat means that while Satan can still influence, he cannot truly conquer. His power is limited. The resurrection exposed his greatest weakness. He cannot stop the life-giving power of God. His attempts to manipulate and destroy are mere echoes of a former authority that no longer holds sway. He is a king without a kingdom, awaiting judgment. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is not just a symbol of life after death. It is the defining moment that marked the beginning of the end for Satan's rule. Before the resurrection, death was the final and greatest weapon in Satan's arsenal. If death could hold even the Son of God, his reign would be unchallenged. By rising from the dead, Jesus declared mastery over life and death, stripping Satan of his most feared power. Revelation 1:18 captures this reality perfectly. I am the living one. I was dead, and now I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades. These keys symbolize complete authority. Death no longer closes the story for humanity. The door to eternal life is now open, and Satan no longer has the power to keep it shut. Although Satan continues his work today, his end is already written. The book of Revelation gives a clear picture of what is to come. In Revelation 20:10, it states, "And the devil, who deceived them, was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever." Are you enjoying the story? Support our channel by clicking the subscribe button. This is the final and irreversible defeat of Satan. The lake of fire is not just a place of punishment. It is a realm of eternal separation from all that is good and holy. Unlike his current roaming freedom, where he still exerts influence, the lake of fire represents total imprisonment, a destiny prepared specifically for him and his followers. This final act of judgment is critical. It ensures that evil will no longer have a place in God's creation. There will be no more deception, no more destruction, just eternal justice. Satan, who once aspired to ascend above the heavens, will be cast down to the lowest depths, forever removed from the presence of God and his people. The defeat of Satan is more than the fall of a single being. It represents the restoration of order to a universe disrupted by rebellion. Lucifer's fall introduced disharmony, but his final defeat will bring complete reconciliation. The resurrection of Jesus was the first step toward this restoration. It signified that the power of evil could be overcome without violence, through sacrificial love and divine authority. When Satan is finally cast into the lake of fire, it will mark the end of the cosmic conflict that began with his rebellion. The universe will no longer bear the scars of sin and death. Peace, justice, and love will reign without opposition. The story that began with rebellion will end with perfect harmony. Faith serves as the lens through which believers view the divine narrative. It allows individuals to grasp truths that extend beyond physical reality. The descent into hell is one such truth, deep, symbolic, and transformative. Interpreting this event requires a careful balance of tradition, scripture, and theology, each offering distinct insights. Theological perspectives highlight that Jesus' descent represents the completion of redemption. His victory over death wasn't confined to his resurrection, it extended into realms unseen. For many, faith in this truth assures that no place is beyond divine reach. The belief that Jesus entered the depths to proclaim victory affirms that redemption is universal, a concept that brings hope and assurance to believers. Interpretation plays a crucial role here. Some traditions emphasize the liberation of the righteous, suggesting that Jesus freed souls who had awaited salvation. This perspective reflects a broader understanding of divine justice, where those who lived righteously before Christ's time were included in his redemptive plan. Other interpretations view the descent as a proclamation of judgment, where Jesus declared victory over the forces of evil, marking their ultimate defeat. The Apostles' Creed, a cornerstone of Christian faith, states that Jesus descended to the dead. This phrase has been understood differently across denominations. For some, it represents a literal descent into a physical realm where souls awaited judgment or redemption. For others, it symbolizes Jesus' full participation in the human condition, experiencing death in all its aspects. These interpretations, while varied, share a common thread. They underscore the totality of Jesus' sacrifice and victory. Faith also influences how believers understand the nature of salvation. The descent suggests that salvation is not limited by time or circumstance. If Jesus reached into the depths of death to proclaim victory, then his power extends to every corner of existence. This belief reassures the faithful that no situation is beyond redemption. It speaks to the enduring hope that even in the darkest places, divine light can prevail. For some, the descent highlights the importance of humility and service. Jesus, though divine, chose the path of humility, descending into death to save humanity. This action challenges believers to reflect the same humility in their lives. It calls for service to others, particularly those who feel lost or forgotten. Others see the descent as a testament to divine justice. The proclamation to the spirits in prison serves as a reminder that justice, though sometimes delayed, is inevitable. This perspective encourages believers to trust in the ultimate triumph of good over evil. It reassures them that wrongs will be righted and that divine justice will prevail in the end. The diversity of interpretations also reveals the richness of Christian theology. Eastern Orthodox traditions, for instance, emphasize the destruction of death itself. In this view, the descent is a cosmic event where Christ's presence shattered the gates of death, liberating all who had been held captive. Western traditions often focus more on the redemptive aspects, viewing the descent as the final act of salvation's completion. Both interpretations, while distinct, enrich the understanding of this profound event. Beyond doctrinal differences, faith in the descent into hell provides a foundation for personal transformation. Believers who embrace this doctrine find assurance in the belief that no depth is too deep for divine rescue. It offers hope in moments of despair, reminding them that darkness is never the final word. The descent demonstrates that God's love reaches even the most hidden and forsaken places. While interpretations may vary, the shared acknowledgement of Jesus' descent reinforces common ground. It reminds the faithful that redemption is a collective experience, rooted in a divine plan that encompasses all of creation. This sense of unity strengthens the community of faith, encouraging believers to support one another in their spiritual journeys. If you're enjoying this story, clicking Super Thanks is the perfect way to support this issue. The descent into the depths signified a bold declaration: death has no dominion. With every step into the shadows, Jesus reclaimed what was thought to be lost. His presence shattered barriers and broke chains that had held souls captive for generations. This was a victory carried out not through force, but through a love so profound that even the finality of death could not resist it. The silence of the tomb concealed a triumph that extended beyond human understanding, a cosmic victory achieved in the quiet confrontation with death's domain. The resurrection was not just a return, it was the culmination of a complete victory. By rising, Jesus demonstrated that death had been conquered not only for himself, but for all who would follow. The grave no longer signified an end. It became a passage. This transformative reality changed how humanity would perceive life, death, and the hope of eternity. The keys of death and Hades, now held by the risen Christ, symbolize this irrevocable shift in power. The story's conclusion reveals more than freedom from death. It unveils a future defined by redemption, justice, and eternal light. The proclamation made in the depths of the underworld reverberates through time. No darkness is too deep, no soul too distant. Jesus' triumph ensures that all creation can be restored, and no force of evil can stand against this redemption. The victory is complete, absolute, and eternal. The journey from the cross to the underworld and back to life is a testament to the relentless nature of divine love. It is a story that challenges, comforts, and transforms. Jesus' triumph ensures that death no longer defines destiny. The victory is total, the promise unbreakable, and the hope eternal. Thanks for watching. Join our community by subscribing to this channel. Until the next video.